You're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, where we discuss everything about the hit BBC series Doctor Who. And today we're discussing our 300th episode. And we'll be ranking the companions. And we'll talk about that in a second. But first, I'm Don Bettinelli. And joining me today on the panel are Jimmy Akin. Hey, Jimmy.
So we're discussing our 300th episode, and it is our 300th episode. That's kind of recursively meta, dude.
It is. We'll talk about that, why we're doing that. And Father Cory Sticha. Hey, Father Cory.
I guess I'm about as confused, but that's all right. How's it going, Don?
Well, yes. Well, I'll explain in a second. But first, folks, be sure to, if you can, we really appreciate it when you do, go to Apple Podcasts and write a review of the show. We've been around for 300 episodes, but we still need more reviews. That really helps us. Writing a review, whenever you do it, however old the show is, really makes a difference for that show. It really does. And also, of course, when you share the podcast with your friends and help us grow our community, reach more listeners. I want to tell you about another show on the network you are sure to enjoy called The Catholics of Oz. You can find that wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/Oz. That's OZ. So, yes, I mentioned this is our 300th episode. And our first episode was released on September 2nd, 2014. So we've been doing this for over 8 years. And as we record this, we're right around that date. You'll be listening to this a little after that. But and our first episode was on the very first 12th Doctor story, Deep Breath. So we've been at it for a while. So in previous special episodes, I think it was the 150th and the 200th episodes, I think we did. We ranked doctors. So we did our listing of the 13 doctors and ranked them. And then we also, in the other one, we gave lists of our essential Doctor Who stories. So those that would be essential for understanding the whole Doctor Who phenomenon. But this time we are talking about companions. And so we should start with the primary question. What is a companion? Who do we include in that definition? So what do you guys think of what is a companion in Doctor Who?
Well, originally they weren't called companions. They kind of, in the early decades of New Who, they tended to go with a kind of laboratory model, where you have a doctor who has assistants. And so what today we would call the companions were often referred to as the doctor's assistants. And that was particularly true, I think, in the John Pertwee era, where it was more like a doctor in a laboratory and then he had assistants. But with the doctor traveling these days, they're not really assistants, although they do often assist him. And so they're people who are like traditional travel companions. Back in the day, you would have wealthy people who would travel the world, and they would often have companions who would go with them and sometimes do minor tasks for them and things like that. And it's kind of like that. There's not a single unanimous definition that's everybody agrees on for what a companion is. These days, a common definition is you have at least one ride with the doctor in the TARDIS. So you accompany him to some other location in space or time. And that qualifies you as a companion. But by that definition, there are a lot of people who would count as companions even though they're very minor figures in the course of the series. There also are, like, for example, in the 10th Doctor finale, Planet of the Dead, everybody on that space bus or everybody on that bus would have been a companion because they got a ride on the TARDIS.
Right.
So something more than that seems to be needed. There also are companions who never really get, or people who play the role of a companion who never really get a ride on the TARDIS. Like Lady Astrid Path in Voyage of the Damned,
the Christmas special,
another Christmas special from David Tennant, or another special from David Tennant. She's on the space Titanic, but she never gets a TARDIS ride. but she's often classified as a companion despite that. So there's kind of fuzzy boundaries. What I did for my classification of the companions, which may differ from y'all's, is I took people who were intended to be regular traveling companions. Whether or not they were, I didn't count, because there's like one notable case of someone who was meant to be a regular traveling companion who then ended up being written out very quickly because they didn't think the character was working. And that was the first Doctor's companion, Katerina. And so I would say she does count as a companion because she was intended to be ongoing. On the other hand, there are other characters who are often classified as companions that I didn't include, partly because just for space reasons, like because there were a lot of people who got one ride on the TARDIS, like Wilfred Mott. I think Wilfred Mott is a great guy. I'm happy to include him on a list of companions, but he was never was never meant to be an ongoing companion. Right. And so I didn't count like Wilfred or Craig from Closing Time as companions. He was just a British Earth father of a baby called Stormageddon, and he was never intended. He did get a ride in a TARDIS. He was a very popular character. People liked him. I liked him. I liked the first episode he was in better than the second, but he was never intended to be ongoing.
Yeah.
So I'm counting more, for our purposes this episode, I'm counting more ongoing companions rather than people who got a single ride.
Father Cory, what about you? How expansive was your definition?
One thing I'd heard once about companions is that they are really intended to be the stand-in for the viewer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That they're meant to be us if we were able to ride with the Doctor, if we were able to go on the TARDIS. And yes, having a ride in the TARDIS was an essential element. For example, if I remember correctly, Kate Stewart never actually rode in the TARDIS yet. And they could still write her in to do that. Yeah. And so this list that we have that we use or this site that we use to set up our lists had her shown as a possible companion. Mm-hmm. Well, but she never rode in the TARDIS. So there has to be that kind of element, like you said to me, being able to, or having that where you've ridden with the Doctor, you're meant to go on. She's a great supporting character. Mm-hmm. She's an important supporting character, but she's not a companion in kind of what as I understand the traditional sense.
I would agree. Yeah.
See, I think I took a little bit more expansive view, which is and a little more nebulous, I guess. But do they play a substantial role in advancing the Doctor's aims in one or more episodes? And so I guess that's sort of a very subjective understanding. But so
is Davros the Seventh Doctor's companion? Because in the Hand of Omega, he advances the Doctor's plans in destroying Ascaro.
Well, no, because he's clearly the enemy, right? I mean, so they have to be an ally of the Doctor who's,
okay.
That sort of thing.
Only the friendly companions.
Well, yes, yes. Or that he I was going to say, or that he considers a friend, like what's his name with the Fifth Doctor,
Turlough.
The one who's Turlough. Yeah. So the Doctor at first, considers him a friend. So, yeah, I took a slightly broader view, like even like Lady Christine, on the bus that goes to the desert planet. I would have considered her more of a companion, but not the other people on the bus, just because they didn't play a substantial allyship role. I think from the Doctor's viewpoint, they weren't substantially a part of. There's some people who are, what's the word? It's not cannon fodder, but sort of just ride-alongs,
Yeah, I think you may want to watch that episode again. I think they play a larger role. Yeah. But Lady Christina is the one that is centerpieced.
Yeah.
And is meant to have romantic chemistry with the Doctor.
I mean, even... I guess I'm taking a little into account even what I think of as the writer's intent. Right. If the writer is going to, make a list in the script, who are the companions and who is not, So I guess I took that slightly wider view, but it's not that I dispute what you're saying, because maybe it is better that if we were to narrow it down. But when you see our rankings, you'll understand, based on what we've just said, how we've put people into the lists.
And one thing to recognize too is this idea of companion is not something that's a canonical definition within Doctor Who. It is very much subjective. Like I said, I took it more of, who are people that I liked as a character, that they were very much standing in, again, as the viewer, they helped the Doctor. In some cases I ranked them down because they didn't help the Doctor. They were detriment to the Doctor and things like that. So
yeah. So before we get to our rankings, Jimmy, you said earlier you compiled some stats on the Doctor's companions.
Yeah, because we've discussed and others have discussed how, for a good period in New Who, it's like, could we please have someone who's not a 20th century female from England?
Yes.
And also there was criticism of Chris Chibnall when he introduced 3 companions for the Doctor. And so I thought I'd take a historical look at the actual stats of what the showrunners have done before. And so the first thing I have is a look at how the number of companions, of ongoing companions, has changed over time. And of course, we started out with the first Doctor with 3 companions, Susan, Ian, and Barbara. So 3 companions was the norm in the beginning. And even when Susan left, they immediately replaced her with Vicky. And so it continued to be 3 companions. Then it dropped to 2 companions. When Ian and Barbara left and returned to Earth, they left behind Vicky, and she was immediately joined by Stephen Taylor. And so we had 2 companions becoming the new norm. When Vicky left, she was replaced by Katerina. And when Katerina left, she was replaced by Sarah. And when Sarah left, she was replaced by Dodo. And throughout that period, we had Stephen as the second companion. Then when Stephen and Dodo left, they were replaced by Ben and Polly. And that wraps out the first Doctor's time. So in the first Doctor's time, it was always either 3 or 2 companions. Then at the beginning of the second Doctor's time, Jamie quickly joined Ben and Polly, and we were back to 3 companions. And then when Ben and Polly left, they were replaced by Victoria. So we were now back at 2 companions. And then when Victoria left, she was replaced by Zoe. And so we had Zoe and Jamie for the end of the second Doctor's time, when he returned to Gallifrey and they were sent back to their home times. Then with the third Doctor, we begin a new era where he's mostly trapped on Earth. And so UNIT, which had been introduced in the second Doctor's time, becomes a prominent feature of the show. And how you want to count the number of companions in his time becomes kind of definitional.
Yeah.
From one perspective, and I think this was sort of the writer's perspective, he has only 1 companion throughout this period. It's his female assistant. And at first that was Liz Shaw, then it was Jo Grant, then it was Sarah Jane Smith. But the UNIT characters are such a prominent part of the show, and they clearly assist the Doctor. Some of them even get to travel with him in the TARDIS. But that would be the Brigadier and Captain Mike Yates and Corporal Benton. And in some versions of, like in the tier ranking site we used to do our rankings, they were considered companions. And in thinking about it, even though classically they haven't been considered that, I think they really kind of are, because they were ongoing characters that assisted the Doctor on a regular basis and are in virtually every story, or even every story. So depending on how you look at it, you could either count the third Doctor as having 1 companion or 4, which would make him the highest companioned Doctor of them all. Nobody else has 4 companions at once.
Yeah.
Then, when the fourth Doctor, Tom Baker, comes in, we drop back to 2 companions, who were Sarah Jane from the third Doctor's time and the new character Harry. Harry leaves, and then really for the first time in the show, the Doctor has only one companion, and it's Sarah Jane Smith. And then when Sarah Jane leaves, she's replaced by Leela, and we have another one companion period. However, it doesn't last too long because Leela is quickly joined by K9.
Mm-hmm.
And even though he's a robot, K9 is considered a companion. Then Leela leaves, and she's replaced by Romana 1. So we still have two companions, Romana 1 and K9. Then Romana 1 is replaced by Romana 2, and we have Romana 2 and K9. We briefly, in a transitional period, go back to 3 when Adric joins. But then very quickly, Romana 2 and K9 leave, and we stay at 3, though, because Adric is very quickly joined by Nyssa and Tegan.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we have at the beginning of the 5th Doctor's time. Adric is then killed off, fortunately, and we have we're back to 2 companions, Nyssa and Tegan. Then we get to 3, because when Nyssa leaves, she's replaced by Turlo, and then there's sort of so we have Tegan and Turlo as the primary companions, but then there's another one. We're really at 3 because Chameleon gets added. Chameleon is another robot, and we haven't talked about him much yet, except in vague, hushed tones about what a disaster it was.
Yeah.
He's another Katarina. He was meant to be an ongoing regular companion, and they quickly concluded he wasn't working. Literally, because he was a robot. He wasn't working.
Yeah.
And so he's there, but he's kind of in the background. He doesn't appear as an active character in very many stories, even though he is on board the TARDIS. Then at the end of the 5th Doctor's time, they clean house. Nyssa and Turlo leave, and Chameleon is killed off by his own request. And the Doctor does the deed. So yes, if you're going to travel with the Doctor, be aware he does kill companions. And then they're all replaced by Peri, and we enter another period of just 1. And so she's there for like a couple of adventures with the 5th Doctor, but she's really a 6th Doctor companion. So it's with the 6th Doctor we enter a prolonged 1 companion period. At first, the companion is Peri. She's replaced by Mel, who takes us into the 7th Doctor, and then Mel is replaced by Ace, who takes us through the end of Classic Who. So through the vast majority of Classic Who, we had 2 or 3 companions all the time. It was only at the end or for a brief period during Tom Baker that there was just 1 companion. In the TV movie, with the 8th Doctor, there's the 1 companion, Grace. Then when we come back in New Who, with the 9th Doctor, we have Martha. We have Rose, just 1 companion. Then we have Martha. Then we have Donna.
This is definitional. Mickey travels with them for several stories.
I'm not counting Mickey as or Jackie or the other, or Captain Jack or people like that.
Okay.
We had 1 primary companion for each of the Russell T Davies series.
Okay.
And then we had some add-ons. Then we got Amy as the 11th Doctor's initial companion. Later, we got back up again to 2 or 3 with Rory and River. Then with the 11th Doctor, we drop down. We have Clara at the end of the 11th Doctor's time, and she's the only traveling companion of the 12th Doctor. She's the sole one. We're back down to 1 companion. I don't count the Paternoster gang; they're supporting characters. Then in the 12th Doctor's time, we have Clara as the sole companion for a while. Then we get Nardole as the sole companion for a single episode. And ordinarily, I wouldn't count him because I'm not counting people who are around for just 1 story. But then he's joined by Bill, and we have 2 companions. Then with the 13th Doctor, we start with 3 companions, Graham, Ryan, and Yasmin. And then we drop down to 2 companions, Yasmin and Dan. And so I don't think the claim that, that 3 companions is too much is accurate. There have been multiple successful times with 3 companions, including the Amy Rory River period.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So that's my look at the number of companions at once. Then getting into the demographics of the companions, by the definition I was using, Classic Who had 32 companions total, and New Who has had 13 total companions. So these are regular, ongoing people who are there for more than one story. Of the sexes, because that was one of the things that was, why do we keep getting women from 21st century England? Well, in Classic Who, of the 32 companions, 20 of them were female, so 2/3. Mm-hmm. However, 10 of them were male, so 1/3 of them were male, and then 2 of them were other, and the others would be K9 and Chameleon, who were both robots.
Right. Okay.
In New Who, there have been no others, but 8 of the 13 companions have been female, and 5 have been male. However, that's a reflection of the Chibnall period. If you look at the companions who are because he introduced more male companions, he's given us Graham, Ryan, and Dan. And so if you look at the pre-Chibnall era, the Russell T Davies and Stephen Moffat era, of the 9 companions in that period, 7 were female, and only 2 were male, the 2 being Rory and Nardole. So there really was a heavy skew towards female companions in that period. And in Russell T Davies' period, they're all female. There are no males. When it comes to species, in Classic Who, of the 32 companions that there were, 24 of them were human. So not too unexpected. 8 of them, nicely, were non-human. And the non-humans included 3 Gallifreyans, Susan, Romana 1, and Romana 2. They also included Adric, Nyssa, and Turlo, who were aliens, as well as K9 and Chameleon, who were robots. In New Who, of the 13 companions, 12 of them are human. There is only 1 non-human, and that's Nardole.
Right.
When it comes to the home planets of the companions, in Classic Who, of the 32 companions, 23 of them were human. Were from Earth, but 9 of them were not from Earth. And so that's a nice mix. I understand most of them being from Earth, but there's a nice mix of people who aren't from Earth. The ones who were not from Earth include Zoe and Leela, who were both humans, but not from Earth. Zoe grew up on a space station. Leela grew up on another planet, as well as Adric, Nyssa, Turlo, Susan, and the Romanas. And K9 also. And then Chameleon is kind of iffy because we don't really know when Chameleon was created, but he first shows up on Earth. So you could say the Master built him on Earth. Then when it comes to the time period, like, are they all 21st century? Oh, I'm sorry. I neglected to do New Who. New Who, of the 13 companions, 12 of them are from Earth. 1 is not, the 1 being Nardole. River, you could also possibly count as not from Earth, but she's ambiguous. She was born of Earth parents in the TARDIS or conceived in the TARDIS. So what do you do with that? And she's definitely human. Then when it comes to the time period they're from, in Classic Who, 4 of the companions came from the past. And that would be Katarina, Victoria, Jamie, and one more I'm not thinking of. Then you had 17 from the present and 6 from the future. And then there were also 5 who I couldn't classify as coming from the past, present, or future. because three of them, Susan and the two Romanas, are Gallifreyan, and we don't know how the Doctor's time period maps onto universal history. And then also Nyssa and Adric, I couldn't classify because they're from a parallel universe. So I don't know how their time matches onto things. In New Who, none have been from the past. 11 have been, this is of 13, 11 have been from the present, and 2 have been from the future, if you want to count River and Nardole, because they both first appear in the future, and River has spent most of her life in the future.
Right.
Finally, the contemporary female from Earth question, where we bundle the demographics together. In Classic Who, out of 20 female companions, only half, 10 of them, were humans from present-day Earth. And of New Who, of the 8 female companions, 7 have been contemporary present-day Earth females. The only one who's an exception to that is River Song, because she's arguably from the future rather than from present day.
Interesting.
So the perception that, man, we had a real run of contemporary female Earth companions there is true. Particularly none from the past or the future. Nobody really. I mean, Nardole and River are kind of being the only exceptions. But in Chris Chibnall's era, to his credit, as much as I dislike a lot of what he does, he has re-diversified the companion pool and at least given us some men, even if he hasn't given us people from other times or planets yet.
Well, and then to something else you said as well earlier, which is that in the New Who era, apart from Nardole and River, they're all from the British Isles. They're whereas in Classic Who, Perry was from American,
ostensibly an American. Yeah.
Well, so they ruined it for the rest of us, apparently.
So the people from Earth in that had a little bit. I mean, it's understandable. It's the BBC, so most of the people will be from the British Isles, but it's still it would be. Well, we'll talk about what we're looking for in the future at the end, but that's a point to bring up. But that's very interesting to break it down, because I think in the fandom there is a lot of assumptions that we kind of just like, oh, all the companions are this or that or have been, and it's so different. But based on those numbers, I mean, there are definitely some New Who differences, but when it comes to like numbers of companions and all that sort of stuff, there is not so much difference. So I find that interesting.
And one thing I think is a stereotype of the female companions, at least from Classic Who, is all they are screechers. Their job is to sit there and scream whenever the monster of the week shows up or something like that. And of course, as we go through this list, there's gonna be a lot of like, no, I mean, some of them were known for that. Some of them were actually hired, Mel, for the fact that she could screech on pitch, but many of them aren't. Leela didn't screech. She definitely was not.
Leela, the Doctor had to restrain Leela repeatedly, and Ace, the Doctor had to restrain Ace repeatedly
from their homicidal tendencies.
Yes,
and there were just a few of them that were known mostly for being able to scream on demand.
Yeah, that's true.
And I have to say, Sarah Jane was actually one of those. Even Joe Grant was more capable in the field than Sarah Jane was. Her personality was different. People might like Sarah Jane's personality more. But Sarah Jane did not have a lot of useful field skills. At least Joe was a trained, Liz Shaw, Joe's predecessor, was a scientist, so she had skills. Joe was an escapologist and a spy. And so she had field skills that could assist the Doctor. Sarah Jane's just a reporter. She can ask questions.
Snoop around.
She's good at snooping. So I guess that brings us now to our rankings then, and how we each grade the companions, how we categorize them. So we're using a site called Tiermaker, 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 and they had a Doctor Who companion ranking site. Although I think we all changed the divisions that they had. I think we went from a system of superior, and then A, B, C, D, F, and then I put unsure or unknown at the bottom. That would be especially companions I haven't seen yet, and you guys may have done something differently. Now,
I think we all used the same basic structure of superior, and then A through F, and then other. But we may have used the other category a little differently than each other.
Right. So I just want to point out that this episode is available as a video on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/StarQuest, and you can go there and see we're going to put the rankings on screen if you're watching now. But if you are just listening to the podcast, we'll link to all of these on our website in our show notes at sqpn.com/Doctor Who, and you'll find the 300th episode, and you can find the images there as well to see this. So what I'll do is I'll throw mine up on screen first, and I'll just kind of go through it. I'm going to go from the bottom up, and so I have unfamiliar with. That's my my ranking for listing for all the ones I have not yet seen, or I just don't really know that well. There are 2 robots that were listed.
Well, okay, so the ones you got at the bottom of your list, that's Chameleon in your first slot of unfamiliar, and then Handles is a Cyberman head that the 11th Doctor had with him as a joke companion for one story.
Right.
So I wouldn't count Handles as an actual companion, but feel free to do so.
So and like I said, I use a slightly more expansive ranking, and so I've included in my rankings above more of the companions than the others did. Yeah, and Jimmy, you had told me who all of these people are, and I forgot to make note that.
So on just to be merciful, on your unfamiliar list, you have Chameleon and Handles, then Ben and Polly, who were first Doctor companions.
Yeah.
Zoe, who's a second Doctor companion that I don't think you've seen yet, except for the War Games. Mm-hmm. Romana 2, fourth Doctor companion. Dodo, first Doctor companion. Katarina, first Doctor companion. Romana 1, fourth Doctor companion, who we're about to start watching. Sarah Kingdom, first Doctor companion, and Stephen, who is also a first Doctor companion.
I probably should have put Ben and Polly in my listing, and if I put them in there, I would have ranked them average. Mm-hmm. I just didn't. I haven't seen enough of them that it really triggered for me as something. But all right, so those are my unfamiliar with rankings. Then in fail, only one person really ends up in fail for me, and that's Adric. We've talked about it plenty of times. He just is, and the ones I've seen him in, just was not. I don't know, just wasn't good. And I'll let you guys talk about that because you're more familiar with him. Below average, there's that one fellow from the 10th Doctor, the 9th Doctor, who traveled in one episode with them on the Dalek thing.
Adam Mitchell thing. I probably should have put him as fail because he was very below average, and the Doctor ended up casting him out for being a jerk. Bill, I never warmed to Bill. She had her good points, but I kind of rank her below average. Same thing with Mickey. I included him. And also Martha Jones. I just felt like, Martha was okay, I guess, but I don't know. I just felt like the romance element that they tried to inject into that season just failed. And I don't know why they tried to do this. And I think they realized this isn't working and went with Donna in the following season with a definitely not romantic. And I think that would have been a much better choice because to follow on the Rose thing with the Martha thing, just I think it injured her as a companion. I think it could injure her as a companion, but I think they did it deliberately. I think the strategy was planned of we're going to have the romance with Rose, and then we're going to have the Doctor oblivious to the romantic interest of the next companion. And I think you can argue they played it in such a way that it ended up hurting the character of Martha, but I like the way it ends because she is an agent and she is self-actualized. And at the end, she says, "This is me getting out.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pine over you forever. Good. I've enjoyed my time with you. I'm going to care for my family now, and see you later. I am self-possessed."
Yep. And then when we see her at the end of the 10th Doctor's time, when we get that, he revisits his companions, we see that she is really taking possession of her own, destiny and that sort of thing. So, I give her that. Turlo, I've only seen him in 2 stories so far, and I've disliked him in both. I do not like him. Perry has her good points, I suppose, but I just find her screechy. I just sort of naggy screechy, and I just really dislike that. I don't really. I've got Captain Jack in mine, my listing as below average. I know that you guys might not include him, but I just found I found him a little grating at times. It's the way they built the character for obvious reasons. I think that might be obvious, maybe they won't be, but his over the top, like I'm trying to find the nice word. Yeah. Yes. His interpersonal passion, put it that way. He just was too strong, came out too strong, and I think that was it. I also kind of felt like the 8th Doctor's companion, Grace, was it?
Grace, yeah.
Grace. Didn't make a big impression on me in the 8th Doctor story. I just not like any of the other companions, and so I didn't have a bit. And Captain Yates, I just didn't feel like he was in enough with the 3rd Doctor, at least the 3rd Doctor I've seen so far, that to really make a positive impression on me. So
he will make an impression when he goes.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Right. And again, that's the interesting part of this is based on what I've seen so far of Classic Who. So obviously average is a very large category for me, and I think some of this might be controversial, so we'll go through. Dan, I find his average. He's been okay. That's the 13th Doctor one. Barbara, I also found kind of average, although Ian does not fall in this category. I just found I like Barbara at times, but I didn't feel like she excelled. Put it that way. Same thing with K9. I think K9 is kind of a funny little device. I didn't feel like he was superior. That he excelled much. Mel. Liz Shaw, I really liked Liz. She just didn't get enough time with the 3rd Doctor. I really feel like if she'd been given more time, she would have been a much better companion. And Harry Sullivan the same way. He just didn't get enough time to really become anything more than about average. I'm really testing my memory with these. I should have given a list. Kate Stewart. I like Kate. She was a marginal, on the border of actually being a companion. I get that, but I really liked Kate Stewart in the stories we saw her in. The same thing with the Paternoster gang, all of them, except for Strax, who I really like Strax. He's hysterical. But the Paternoster gang, again, marginally companions. I like Nyssa and Tegan. I felt like Nyssa was made to be a little too flat until the very last story, where she finally got something that she could emote about. But I felt like she was flat. Whereas Tegan, I liked, but she was over the top at times, and her sort of coming and going thing was a little annoying. I like what I've seen so far of Vicky, but we'll have to see how she develops going forward. Yaz, I'd say average. There are elements of that character that they've developed that I really kind of dislike, which we've made clear. But I kind of like the fact that she's got some agency and she's a strong character. The Susan as the Doctor's family is very interesting, but they played her really young and really kind of, I don't know. She didn't really make a huge impression in their time there. Benton, I kind of like Benton. I think if he had more time that I've seen him in, he might rank a little higher, because there's something about Benton that I kind of like. Rose, I felt, as the first companion in the New Who era, she gets a little extra, but she only got the really the one season and then a few really appearances here and there.
She got two. I mean, she had the Ninth Doctor's only season and then the 10th Doctor's first season.
I'm sorry. Right. That's where it was. Yeah. I don't know why I was thinking that. But I just felt like the whole the Doctor is my boyfriend thing with her, she really launched that, and I just felt like it was it really kind of knocked her down a bit. Ryan, there were things I liked about Ryan, mostly having to do with Graham, but there was other aspects of Ryan that I found kind of lacking. And Victoria, she was fine. I think part of the problem is I've only ever seen her, either heard her basically in the audio books or seen the animation. So I've never actually seen the actress on screen playing her. So it didn't make a huge impression. All right. Above average. I wrote the Brigadier. Love the Brigadier. But he's not truly a companion. But I love the Brigadier. I like Ace. I like Leela. Nardole, Osgood. Osgood would rank higher if Osgood had more time and didn't have that awful ending. That really bugged me. That the way they did that. Joe Grant and Strax, because Strax is just funny. In my excellent category, I have Rory, Amy, Wilf. I will fight to the death to have Wilf in this ranking, but that's just me, because I love Wilf. River, Sarah Jane, Graham, and Ian. So really, and in fact, it's interesting. I have half male, half female, and a good smattering of a couple from Classic Who, which is interesting. And then Superior, my favorites, and I know this is again going to be different from you guys. I have Donna, Clara, and Jamie. Those I rank them as my Superior. I think Clara, I know is controversial, but there are elements to Clara's character that I really enjoy, and that are especially because she challenged the Doctor at times, and I think the same thing with Donna. Challenged the Doctor, didn't just follow in his wake. I didn't like Clara's ending because Moffat can't kill anyone, but I think in general, at her time, I think she added something to the stories, and that's I think the same with Donna and Jamie that none of the other companions did in the same way. So that's my listing.
That's great. And everybody has a right to their opinion, and everybody has a right to be wrong.
Exactly. So that's my ranking. If there's no other comment on mine, we can go on to Father Cory, but if you get something to add to that.
I'd have just a brief comment. You split Ian and Barbara. Yeah. And when we get to mine, you'll see I didn't. But if I did, I would have made the same split. I think that Ian pops more as a companion than Barbara does.
I agree as well.
Okay. Good. All right. So that is mine. And why don't we go to Father Cory's next? So Father Cory, here you are. You're on the hot seat. Why don't you tell us about your listing?
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do kind of like Dom. I'm going to start with those I'm not familiar with, but then I'm going to start at the top and come down. And so I'm going to jump to the bottom and then go back to the top. And most of these on the ones that I'm unfamiliar with are early companions, as you can see. They're still in black and white. They're early. They're first Doctor companions I'm really not familiar with. Second Doctor companions I'm not really familiar with. So first we've got Dodo, Sarah Kingdom, Katarina, Stephen Taylor. Although I'm a little more familiar with Stephen Taylor, and actually we did see him very, very briefly recently. We'll see much more of him coming up. But these are all first Doctor companions I haven't seen. Of course, Sarah Kingdom, Katarina mostly play into the Dalek's Master Plan, which no one's seen in many, many years because it's been missing. Zoe Harriet was the last of the second Doctor companions to come on, and really don't know a lot about her other than War Games again. So not much there. Grace Holloway, because she was only in the movie, she really wasn't developed as a companion. She could be considered a technical companion because she did ride in the TARDIS and did work with the Doctor, but she's kind of right on that borderline.
She got in the TARDIS. I don't know that she technically rode in it, but
yeah, I can't remember. I think they might have traveled in it, but I can't remember. It's been a while since we've seen the movie. So since I've seen the movie, so Handel's not even a companion. That was just a gag. That was just a gag from Time of the Doctor. The only reason why he's on here is because whoever created this list originally added him Kate Stewart and Osgood, very good characters. Love them, those characters. They're important side characters. I don't really consider them companions either. So important characters again for the series, but not ones that I enjoyed. I was a little more generous with the S tier than Dom was. Of course, Jamie, gotta love Jamie. I mean, he really was a great character. He could stand up to the Doctor. He was kind of an action hero a little bit. He was very much a foil to the Doctor. The Doctor kind of get full of himself, and Jamie would kind of pop his bubble a little bit sometimes, make a little smart comment that would kind of take him down a tier or two. So I really enjoyed Jamie. Leela, kind of similar. She was very much the action hero. I mean, she was, of course, we talked about it. Like the Doctor actually would have to restrain her because she was ready to start throwing knives at moment's notice.
Or Janice Thorns.
Yeah, or Janice Thorns or something. But she was more intelligent than her primitive appearance would suggest. She looked like she was the stupid primitive, but there'd be times where she'd kind of confound the Doctor a little bit because she knew more than he really thought, or she was intelligent enough to pick things up quicker than he really thought. Ace I loved, and part of this is emotional is because, of course, Ace came out kind of as I was getting into my teenage years, and she was, again, about that age, a little older than me, and again, kind of action. She was self-sufficient. She would push against the Doctor, so a little bit more emotional, but I really always liked Ace. I think she's one of my, very much my favorite companions. Donna. She's funny. She played well off the Doctor. She was fun. She, again, maybe not self-sufficient, but she kind of really came into her own. Another one of those companions I really didn't like how they ended up with that character, but for most of it, she was just an amazing companion. Rory, I would say Rory is probably the most faithful companion to the Doctor and faithful to Amy. He became extremely confident as a character, even starting out as this goofball, ridiculous person, became really confident, but without becoming a junior Doctor. So many companions become Doctor Junior, and Rory really didn't. He didn't try to be. He became just this confident, really warrior almost. He was a soldier. And then River Song, another one of those where she could deflate the Doctor's ego. He'd get kind of full of himself, and she'd, oh, darling, knock it off, and just kind of deflate him, turn the tables on him. She was an equal to the Doctor, obviously, very much so. And she was just a lot of fun. Getting into my A tier, I grouped Ian, Barbara, and Susan, although obviously they don't spend their whole time together. And yeah, Susan I would put much lower on her own if she was just a single companion. Barbara would probably put about C tier as well if she was on her own. But the three of them together worked really well. And of course, Ian and Barbara, for the time that they were with the Doctor, were a great pair. Ian was the kind of the strongest of the three, but all three of them working together and the two of them working together were a great team of companions. Sarah Jane, I mean, she was loved, and much of it was her personality, because she would stand up to the Doctor. She'd give him guff when he was, trying to be full of himself. There's that scene in Pyramids of Mars where, he's talking about, I walk in time and I'm 750 years old. Oh, then you're middle aged then. And just kind of he's being all moody and brooding, and she's just like, oh, you're middle aged then. Yes.
In that same sequence, he's also like, you don't understand, Sarah Jane. I'm a Time Lord. I walk in eternity. And she's like, oh, I know.
Yeah. It's just, yeah. I mean, it's just, she was so good at it. Like he would try to be full of himself. She'd like, I'm not playing that. No, we're not going there. She did have kind of, sometimes she needed help, or, she would be seemingly helpless, but then she would push beyond limits. How many times does she say, I can't take much more of this, and then have to push just a little bit further? And, and that's obviously a quality a companion needs, is to be able to push a little bit further. Obviously New Who takes that to the extreme, but Sarah Jane could kind of go past. Rose is one of those. The reason why she's at A tier is she really kind of reestablished what a companion was, but in a good way as her character developed. Because, yeah, she started out kind of as the dingy teenager who kind of became Doctor's my boyfriend, but she, again, developed into a much stronger character as time went on. Martha, I think she had a lot of potential, as they show again, as you mentioned, Dom, at her last scene at the end of the 11th or 10th Doctor. I'll get to it. The 10th Doctor scene. She had a lot of potential that I think they could have developed if they had given her another season, but they didn't. And so I gave her an A only because I think she really did have the potential to be up there. And then Amy, Amy's one of those. I'm not as big a fan of Amy as others might be, but I still think she's an A tier companion. She had a lot of up and downs. She still persevered. And just, yeah, I mean, I liked her as a character. I just didn't like her as much as I think others might have. Going to my B tier, and I'm not going to be quite as we go from this point on, I'm not going to be quite as expressive about each character because that's going to take way too long. But we've got Vicky. She's one that I've kind of rediscovered as we've been watching the first Doctor, and I've really kind of enjoyed her as a character, again, because she can kind of stand to the Doctor. The Brigadier. I mean, I love the Brigadier. I've always loved the Brigadier. The Brigadier is just an awesome character because he doesn't put up with the Doctor stuff. He's just kind of like, okay, whatever. Can I shoot it? He's just like 5 rounds rapid. Let's go. Yep. Sergeant
Benton. Yeah.
Sergeant Benton, Corporal Benton, then Sergeant Benton. He's just kind of down to earth. And I like him partially because he is an enlisted guy. And of course, I was in the Air Force. I was enlisted. And he's just kind of, oh, wow. He walks to the TARDIS. Oh, wow. Okay. This is impressive. Let's go.
Yeah. He also gets the line when someone points out to him that it's bigger on the inside. It's like, I can see that.
Yeah. Pretty realistic. Yeah. K9, this is another kind of emotional one because I grew up watching K9, the Fourth Doctor and K9. And of course, as a kid, oh, cool, I want a robot dog too. But, and K9's big weakness, of course, like, our cell phones is his battery dies when you need him the most. So he prefigures modern day technology of the battery dies when you need it. Romana too, I enjoyed. She was, a really good character. And of course, for those who don't know, there weren't 2 Romanas. There was a regeneration of Romana. So it's, it's like 2, there's different Doctors. Well, there's different Romanas because of regeneration. And Romana 2 was the stronger of the 2. Romana 1 was a little more by the book, by the rules, and Romana 2 was a little more free flowing. That's why Romana 1 got ranked lower.
Yeah, Romana 2, and I like Romana 1. Romana 2 was actively copying Tom Baker's Doctor.
Yeah.
To the point that she would even wear a long scarf. It was just a pink one.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So Romana 2 was kind of a fun character. Nyssa, of course, she's, very, very, intelligent, very, self-assured character, and could sometimes be almost an equal to the Doctor. Wilf, I mean, I just loved Wilf, and he, again, he's one of those characters kind of developed into his own. And then finally, Graham. I think of the 13th Doctor companions, Graham was the strongest
by far.
Far, yeah. Going to C tier, we have Ben and Polly. I grouped them together because they really played off each other. They were really kind of a fun group. She gets so frustrated when we would call her Duchess, and it was so much fun. Victoria was a good character. I mean, she was kind of more of a screecher, and she was younger, but I liked her. Captain Yates, and until he turned evil, he was a good character. Yeah.
Spoilers, sweetie.
Yeah. Oh no, this is a spoilers time. This is completely spoilers time here.
Yes.
Liz Shaw, I liked, again, as kind of an equal to the Doctor, and unfortunately, that's why she got replaced with Joe Grant, who was a good character, but I think Liz Shaw was a better character of the 2. Harry Sullivan, I liked him, especially how frustrated Sarah Jane would get with him when he'd call her old girl.
Romana or old thing.
Old thing. Yeah, old thing or old girl. Yeah.
He had a very PG Woodhouse style of dialogue for that character.
Yeah.
Yes.
He was kind of more of a Victorian type character, a little beyond that. Romana 1, I mean, she was a great character, and when we get to the Key to Time, she's a very important character to that. But like I said, I don't think she was as good as Romana 2. I like Tegan. I always liked Tegan. I mean, sometimes she got a little
stroppy,
irritating. and of course, there was the left for a couple of episodes and came back and all that. But Mickey, I like. Mickey, I did like him, but he was kind of a supporting second tier companion, really. Strax was just Strax. He was just fun. Can I blow things up now?
Yeah.
That was basically his French life. Yeah, boy. I'm a girl. No, you're not. You're a boy. Nardole was another fun character. I really didn't like him as much, maybe others might, but he was a fun character. And then Dan, I did like Dan. I do like Dan. I don't know what's going to happen with Dan going forward, but I do like what we've seen from him so far. But again, not a really strong companion. D level, you got this is where the rants are going to start. But Turlo is just I hated the character because of course he comes in and he's trying to actually help destroy the Doctor and all that, and that he really doesn't that character really isn't improved in my opinion. I'm not a fan of the Pater Noster gang, Jenny and Vastra. I'm not a fan of them. I really have never been. They're kind of irritating, and I really don't know if they should be considered companions technically anyways. But Mel, Screamer, I mean, just she's annoying. I've always found Mel annoying. Bill, I don't know. She wasn't that strong of a character to me. She really wasn't. I've been on record saying I don't like Clara.
Oh, and so we have to go
Clara.
now.
Yeah, I have been on record of saying that. I don't like Clara, and I don't like Clara, and I still don't like Clara. So we'll move on from that.
But she's so cute. No, just kidding.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a couple of these characters that they're on the list only because they're cute, and she's one of them. Another one's took up in the F tier. I wasn't impressed with her when they brought her on, and the development of the character really didn't help. Ryan is so flat as a character. It's too bad too, because he's a good actor. It's just the character is not a good character. And then we get to F. Adric, backstabber, blows with the wind, just annoying. Enough said. Chameleon, just it was a fail of a character. I mean, just in general. And of course, we've talked about it briefly here before. Is it literally was a robot that stopped working, so they had to write it out.
Well, Perry, in part because the guy who programmed it died in a motorboat accident and didn't leave documentation.
Oh, see, I didn't know the behind the scenes on that, but yeah,
so always important to document.
Yeah, always document. I learned that as a programmer. Perry, the only reason why she's on this list is because she's cute. I mean, she's just terrible character. Adam Mitchell, same thing you said, Dom, just not good, just jerk. And Captain Jack, I never liked that character either. I never liked how he was written. I never liked what he stood for, what he meant. Fail.
Okay, very good. So interesting to see the areas where we concur and where we differ as usual. And so I don't have much to add to that. I think it's a pretty good expression of. And that's the thing is these are expressions of how we approach Doctor Who in many ways. So and I think that's a pretty good expression of your approach to Doctor Who and your history with it. So
yep.
Good. All right. Well, take that one down, and we'll bring up Jimmy's ranking, and we'll hear from Jimmy. So, Jimmy, how do you rank them?
Okay, so I don't have an unfamiliar one per se because I've seen all of them, but I do have my bottom category is for too short, not a full companion or other, and these are for people who were there too little time to get an impression of what they would have been like as an ongoing companion, or people I didn't consider full companions or for some other reason. So on this list, I have Katarina from the First Doctor and also Sarah Kingdom from the First Doctor. Katarina was written in one story and written out in the next. Sarah Kingdom is in just one story, although it is a big one. It's the Daleks' Master Plan, so that's a 12-parter. And of the two, I'd like to see more of both. I'd like to see more of Katarina. I mean, she sacrificed her life for the Doctor. She's the first companion, and I think maybe the only companion to actually do that. In order to save the Doctor specifically, she sacrificed herself. Sarah Kingdom is a wonderful character. I love Jean Marsh, who plays her. I would love to see more Sarah Kingdom, but they're both just in one story, so I put them on this tier. Grace Holloway from the Eighth Doctor's TV movie never left Earth with him, so she's a one-shot movie companion. As far as I'm concerned, not an ongoing one. So I don't rank her for that reason. Adam Mitchell is in two stories. He's only a companion for like one. And he's immediately ejected, and he is someone you don't like, but that's because he's written that way. He's written to be deliberately unlikable and be a failed companion. And it is clear to me that Russell T Davies never intended him to be an ongoing companion. So I'm not going to treat him as an ongoing companion. He was written to be a deliberate one-shot failure. Mickey, I wouldn't really count as a companion, but as a supporting character. Jack, same thing. Captain Jack is a supporting character to me, not a companion. Wilf, although he is a companion in the End of Time, the 10th Doctor's regeneration story, that's a single story. And so Wilf is really a supporting character who then becomes a one-shot companion, but I'm not counting one-shot companions. Kate Stewart is another supporting character to me. So are Vastra and Jenny, whose relationship that they constantly have to bring up is annoying. Strax, I love as a character. I think Strax is hilarious, but he's not a companion. He's a supporting character. Handles is not only a one-shot thing, it's a joke. So it's not a regular companion. And Osgood is not a regular companion. So moving up to the regular companions at F tier, these are the companions I actively dislike. And this has nothing to do with the actors. It's because of the way they were written or what was going on in the show. But Fourth Doctor, Fifth Doctor companion, Adric, right there. I actually have some sympathy for Matthew Waterhouse, the actor who played him, but this character is actively annoying. Chameleon is actively annoying. Perry, I like Nicola Bryant, but her character, especially in the beginning, it gets better at the end. In Mind Warp is a different kettle of fish, but most of her run is characterized by her being a whiny brat to a bratty doctor, and that just makes her unlikable. I mean, I like the person, but part of what I did in thinking about these ranks is, would I want to watch a new episode, or how much would I want to watch a new episode featuring this character? And unless they took a radically different approach with Perry, I wouldn't particularly be interested in revisiting this character. Then jumping to the 13th Doctor, I also put each of these tiers in chronological order, so I'm working my way through them. Coming to the 13th Doctor, Ryan and Yaz, F tier. Actively dislike. Ryan, not as much as, say, not as much as Adric, but Ryan just complains and sucks his thumb. And Yaz is the greatest woman ever, but we never see that. We only hear exposition telling us that. And that just, both of these characters are just don't do anything that makes them admirable. And so that, and yet we're told they're so great. And it's like, no, you don't just get to say somebody is a great character. And that's not going to make me like them. You need to show me they're a great character. And that hasn't been done here. Moving up to D tier, this is a little misleading because you would think D is also dislike, but I don't actually dislike these characters. I just am not as excited about them as others. But on D tier, I would include Third Doctor companions Captain Yates and Sergeant Benton. I like them both. I like Sergeant Benton a little more. He's has a more pleasant disposition. Captain Yates is a little more peppery, but I like them both. Also, I like Turlough because I've seen his whole story arc, not just the opening trilogy where he's working for the Black Guardian. But you know, I don't actively dislike him. I like him, but I'm not particularly excited to watch a new episode if they made one with Turlough. Then we come to C tier, which is the tier I used as a default for companions, unless I had reason to move them up or down from C tier. And I have at C tier, so this is pure average companion. Like them, but still average. First Doctor companion Vicky. First Doctor companion Stephen. Second Doctor companion Victoria, who shows actually more agency than she gets credit for. Second, this is a little bit out of order. First Doctor companion Dodo, who is not widely regarded in fandom, but I think that's because a lot of people haven't seen her episodes. When you actually watch her, she's pleasant. She is a pleasant companion. She's nice. So I didn't want to dock Dodo for anything. I thought she was a good average companion. Also, first and second Doctor companions, Ben and Polly, I'd put on this level. The Brigadier I'd put on this level, as I would Liz Shaw, Joe Grant, Romana 1, bringing us up to the fourth Doctor's time. Nyssa, despite the fact I liked Nyssa growing up, in looking at Nyssa on rewatch, I just say she's average. She's a little, I appreciate her kind of regal demeanor, but she's so restrained that she doesn't really pop, off the screen as a companion. Tegan pops more, but can be a little annoying. So I consider her average too. Mel, I like a lot, but I still think she's just average. Bill, I by and large like, but still average. Graham, of all of the initial 13th Doctor companions, I would say is average. I could put him higher if he had more screen time, but he is competing with two other much more annoying characters. And so I just put him on the average tier. And then Dan, I would also put on the average tier. He's enjoyable to watch. I'd be up for watching more of him. Unfortunately, the price tag of that is you've got to watch the 13th Doctor, and yeah. So he's just average to me. Moving up to the B tier, so this is companions I think are above average for my personal, enjoyment pleasures. Susan. And in fact, of all the characters on this list, even though I think she's only above average as a character, I would very much want to see a new episode with her to tie up the loose end. I shall come back, my dear. I mean, come on, tie that up on screen. I mean, it's been done in Big Finish, but tie that up on screen while the actress is still alive. But in terms of enjoyment factor, I'd say she's B tier. I'd also put Harry Sullivan on B tier. I'd love to see more of him. K9 is B tier for me. So is Romana 2, and so is Martha Jones. I think Martha Jones is above average, but not at my top. Nardole, I would put on B tier, as I would Clara. I think they're both above average, but I wouldn't put them on the top. Then we move up to A tier. For A tier, from the first Doctor, I have Ian and Barbara. Although if I split them, I would rank Ian higher. I also have second Doctor companion Zoe, who is a lot of fun and is very smart and will challenge the Doctor. Then I have Sarah Jane Smith because of personality, but and Sarah's actually one I could put down on B tier. I'm not. I put her on A, but I could be argued out of that. And then Rose, I also put on A tier. I think she's a very good companion. She helped give the series a new successful launch with her 2 seasons. But she's not someone that I would put as a superior companion. So then we get to the superior companions at the very top. Second Doctor companion, Jamie. Fourth Doctor companion, Leela. I love watching Leela, and not just because she's hot in that leather thing she wears. I really enjoy her attitude and her sort of Pygmalion, Eliza Doolittle-like character, and how she will stand up to the Doctor and do what she thinks is in the Doctor's best interest, whether the Doctor wants her to or not. Ace, same thing. Seventh Doctor companion. She will blow stuff up. And whether the Doctor wants her to or not, and she's a lot of fun. In New Who, 10th Doctor companion, Donna Noble. Outstanding. Would love to see more of her, and fortunately, we will be seeing more of her in the near future. Yes. Also, 10th, 11th, and 12th Doctor companion, River Song. Love watching River. Love listening to the Big Finish audios in the Diary of River Song. Also, I would put on this level her parents, Amy and Rory. If someone said to me, we've we've discovered new episodes with Amy and Rory. You want to watch them? Yeah, I would want to watch them. If I did split the companions, I would break in favor of Rory, because of how he matured as a character, and as Amy became Dr. Junior, Rory became the audience surrogate. He became the everyman through who was relatable, that we could understand the series through. So those are my rankings.
Yeah, speaking of, would I like to see them again? When we had the lockdown Doctor Who lockdown specials, and we got the one with Rory, I was so excited. It was so little, but it was so exciting to have a new Rory, and so yeah, I agree with that.
Incidentally, if you haven't seen it, there's also a lockdown with Osgood and Zygon Osgood.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah. That one, yeah.
So the interesting thing is that having gone through all of these with you guys, I might change some of mine. A lot of mine were when I do things like this, I tend not to be analytical so much as instinctual, and I go through it quickly, and then I don't fiddle with it, because if I fiddle with it, I'll be really upset, and I'll get annoyed, and then it'll be all wrong. But going through these with you guys, I might move some of mine around a little bit. I might put Rose a little higher, and I might even put Martha a little higher. Having talked about it, but yeah, I in general, I'm pretty happy with my listing, and I think it's interesting to, again, like I said, it shows where we are in, how we first came to Doctor Who, which companions were the ones we first saw, or who we've seen the most, and so I really appreciate that.
One thing that you mentioned, Jimmy, about seeing more Amy and Rory, and I'd love to see that too. The only problem is now with Karen Gillan having a fairly successful movie career, I doubt she would do either Doctor Who or Big Finish,
Yeah. It's too bad. Although she was heard off screen in that lockdown special, that was her in audio yelling at Rory from off screen.
Yeah.
So let's round things out by talking a little bit about the future. What type of companions would we like to see in the future? And I suppose, since I went first with my rankings, I'll just throw a few things out there, and also because I have the least experience with Doctor Who, but I'll throw a few things out. I'd like to see more historical people. I'd like to see more people from different time periods, like we had with Jamie and Victoria, or from the future, like we have with Zoe, like you mentioned. I definitely want fewer romantic interests. Please, let's have the Doctor. Like, it just has gotten kind of boring. Like, every time a new companion shows up, is this going to be another romantic interest for the Doctor? It's been done. I really like the kinds of companions that Graham and Wilf were, because they brought such a different perspective. They're not 20-something young people from England. They're older, and they had different life experiences. And so bringing in companions who have had different life experiences, or like Graham's wife, who was briefly there, Grace, would have also been an interesting companion if she'd had more time. Just people with different backgrounds and different life experiences to bring something new to the TARDIS. And also, and I think this kind of goes with what I said earlier, more alien/future people. I just really want to see, like I said, more variety is really my watchword. How about you, Father Cory? What do you think?
I agree a lot with what you said. Having a little more diversity insofar as not everybody is 20-year-old people from the UK, having historical figures, having people from other planets, having people that are older. That's one thing that Graham and Dan both bring to the show, was a perspective of somebody who was a bit older. I was thinking too, that there'd be an opportunity for, talking about like closing out the story with Susan. Well, what about a regenerated Susan? Where, you finish up with Carol Ann Ford and regenerates into, the next version of Susan. Have that even for just a short time, for a couple of stories or something like that. Kind of exploring other options for companions that do more the traditional. I'd like to see another Ace type character, or something like that. Somebody who is more self-sufficient, but doesn't try to become Dr. Junior. Although, of course, you look at the extended story of Ace, she does end up going on to the Time Lord Academy and all that. But as she is on TV, she's not trying to be Dr. Junior. She's just trying to be somebody who likes to blow things up,
Right.
But somebody like that, or a Leela, or something more along that character. And I definitely agree with the romantic relationship. We're so done with that. That's so 2005. I mean, we move past that.
Right. How about you, Jimmy?
I also would want more diversity in the demographic sense of let's get people who aren't just females from 21st century Earth. I'm sure we will continue to have those, but I don't think we need the extreme focus that we've had on that, or even humans from present day Earth. I'd like to see humans from other planets. I'd like to see humans from the future and the past, and I'd like to see non-humans. So I'd like to see more diversity in that respect. I do not want more quote unquote representation.
Mm-hmm.
There's and that goes along with, I especially don't want representation romances with the Doctor. Now Russell T Davies is going to have some of that in his show, hopefully, and I think it's likely he won't have as much as Chris Chibnall. Chris Chibnall seemed to be much more political than Russell T Davies was, and so I think that that Russell T Davies will pull back. I don't expect the companions to be perfect. I just hope that they don't fall off a cliff.
Yeah. Right. That's a good way of putting it. So I think as we wrap things up, I just, we get our last thoughts in here. It's a lot of fun to kind of go through these sorts of episodes, not just because it's a special 300th episode, but it kind of resets our expectations, understandings of where the Doctor is. And I mean, not only did we have, 20-something years, 27 years of classic Who, we're approaching 20 years of new Who. I mean, we're it's not gonna be long before we start passing it in age. And so there's a lot of Doctor Who to consider. And so getting these opportunities to kind of reset and re-understand how it exists within its own universe is a lot of fun and very useful. So any last thoughts, Father Cory?
Nope. I think this was a good thought exercise. This was fun, and encourage our listeners to do the same, do their own lists.
Yeah, and send us the lists. I'd love to see them. Jimmy, how about you? Last thoughts?
Oh, no, there's nothing you can do to prevent the catharsis of spurious morality.
All right. So before we go, we want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create The Secrets of Doctor Who, including JS, Kim L, Laura M, Martin B, and Sailing L. You're our companions for this episode. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue The Secrets of Doctor Who and all the shows at StarQuest, and you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. And we'd also like to thank Victor Lambs, who edited this episode for us. So that's it from us. What did you think of our 300th episode and our rankings of the companions? You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com, the Secrets of Doctor Who Facebook page. You can send an email to drwho@sqpn.com, or visit the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/discord, and you can certainly post your rankings there if you want. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the 7th Doctor story, Curse of the Fenric. Until then, Father Cory Sticha, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Doctor Who.
Well, thank you, Dom.
Jimmy Akin, thank you as well.
Thanks, Dom.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Doctor Who on StarQuest. And remember, it's bigger on the inside.